actually want to move it over to our guest speaker. I'm excited to have her here. She is the representative for District 26. I appreciate her being here. So please welcome up Representative Donna White.
Well, first of all, thank you all so much for inviting me to speak tonight. I'm very excited to be in this room and to feel the energy. You know, I first got involved with the Republican Party when I was about some of y'all's ages. But my daddy raised me as a Republican from the time I was born. My mother's family dated back to the late 1700s in Johnston County, but they were Democrats because everybody in Johnston County was a Democrat. But my daddy was raised on the coast, and so there were a lot of Republicans on the coast, and so he was raised there. He was World War II, but before World War II, he worked with, when President Roosevelt established the CCC camps for Civil Corps of Engineering, not engineering, but Civil Corps of Conservation. And so my daddy got into that as a teenager in the 30s and went to Bend, Oregon. And who was talking to me? Oh, my friend here was his family's from Oregon. But my daddy planted trees out there, and then they sent him back to Fort Bragg. I'm not going to call it the other name.
Fort Bragg.
So Fort Bragg, and he built the barracks because the war was coming, and they knew it was coming. And this was like in the late 30s. So then he got old enough to fight in the war. So he was but when he was at building the barracks at Fort Bragg, his friend, from Bolivia, that's where my father was born, called him and said, or probably didn't call him, but sent a carrier pigeon or something. and he said, you need to come to Clayton, my daddy's coats. And they had them lined up against the wall, and that's where that was the voting enclosure for Clayton, for all of Clayton. And I was the chief registrar when Martin was, at that time, you had the chief registrar of the party of the governor, and then you had the two judges, one Republican and one Democrat. They could never get a Republican to work because there was only 3 Republicans in Clayton. It was my daddy, my mama, and I. And my daddy had his own business, and my mama worked, so I was the only one, so I went to work. But anyway, fast forward, go back a little bit. When I was 18, we went to go into that place where you paid your light bill, not your utility bill, but your light bill. And you go in the front door, paid your light bill on the right, and then on the left was where they had the voting set up. Now, by the time I became the registrar years later, in my late 20s, early 30s, we had it in underneath where the firemen. So when the bell rang, because they had a fire call, and it was all volunteer then, we had to just stand up and take our tables and move them over, and the firemen would come in, jump in their boots, and put their coats on and go out for the fire. So anyway, y'all think that was a long time ago, but it really wasn't. But so anyway, but when the first time I went in to vote when I was 18, on the way there, my daddy said, now Donna, you're going to, we were friends. My daddy was a businessman. We knew everybody in town, you know. He said, people are going to be there today that you know, and they're going to not talk nice to us. But it's okay because we know who we are, and we're not ashamed of that. And so just go in, and whatever they say, you just smile and say, yes, sir, no, sir, whatever. So we walked in, and a man that I had known my whole life, a good businessman in Johnston County, he said, what in the heck, I'll say heck because we're all the deal, but what in the heck are y'all doing here? Oh, Lord, there's those damn Republicans. And he said, Richard, that was my daddy's name, why in the world are you coming up here to vote? There's only 3 of y'all in the whole county. It's not going to make a difference. And you only get to vote every 4 years because there was only, one Republican when the presidential race was. And my daddy said, well, it means something to us. And my daddy's holding my hand, and my daddy's hands he was a small man, muscular, but his hands were like down feathers. You put your hand in there and you just kind of melted into them. Anyway, he held my hand. And I was like this because I was raised holiness, and you didn't curse at our house, and you didn't drink, and you said yes, ma'am, and no, sir about everything. So, but anyway, so here is this man that I respect. His wife is my teacher in high school. And he's cussing at my daddy and telling us why in the heck are we coming to vote. But anyway, he said, go back there to that box. I knew they'd come in, and I knew she was about old enough now to vote. So go ahead and get 3 ballots, because that's all we got in the county. So anyway, that was my first experience as voting as a Republican, and I've never voted any other way. So I am so glad and so excited to see all of your young faces and know what you're bringing to the party, and knowing that you're on fire and that you're interested. And I pledge you now, anything that I can do to help you move forward. And when you get your bank account ready, let me know, and I'll give you a check. I'm not going to give you a check until it's legal, though. Yeah. Because I have to report what I write to, and I told my treasurer, I said, do whatever you want to do to me, but if you send me to jail, I'm bringing you down with me. So, okay. So my district is Western Johnston County. It's now only a little geographical strip of Johnston County, because in 22 I was stripped of all of my geographic area that I had 4 Cleveland precincts. I only have 1 now, and it's the most Democrat one. They took all my South Smithfield, which was my other stronghold of Democrats, took that away from me. Right now, since last August, and y'all need to hear this, since last August, every month I send out voter letters to the people that are registering registering to vote. My district is growing, although it's just a little strip of land. It is growing 800 people a month for the last 3 years, 300 to 500 a month for the 3 years before that. So when they've stripped me of all my solid conservative areas, Clayton, I have 2 towns, Clayton and Archer Lodge. Clayton is growing Democrats. Last August, for the first time since the early 2000s, when we actually flipped Johnston County to Republican, for the first time since we split, in my district, there are more Democrats registering than Republicans in Western Johnston County. I can show you the numbers. Every month I have to see the numbers that says Democrats this many, Republicans this many, unaffiliated twice as many as my Republicans, which is pretty much that is pretty much typical across the state, because unaffiliated are registering more than any other party. But there are more Democrats registering in Johnston County. It took us the first Republican was elected in Johnston County. If I had brought a treat, I would tell you, I would let y'all guess it. Okay, just tell me what you think. In the first Democrat, hey, Devan, come on in. I call him Little D. I've called him Little D since he was a little D.
Very ironic.
But since August, there's been more Democrats registering, more unaffiliated, and that's not anything uncommon. And what did I lost my train of thought when I saw Devan.
You've got this little tiny district. You've got Democrats moving in.
Yeah.
What do you need from us?
Well, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Okay. So I just want you to be aware that we are not growing Republicans in our district. We are growing Democrats in my district, which is Clayton, Archer Lodge. It's really 42 east and west. Down to 50, they've stopped me. I used to go beyond 50, and I had some Republicans beyond 50, but they've stopped me at 50 Highway now. So it's just really 42. They've taken all. The only part of Cleveland that I have is Cornwallis Road, which is heavily Democrat now, but that's the only part of Cleveland that I actually have. They've taken everything else away from me. So I just want to make you all aware of that. Okay, I'm a registered nurse, and I have been since I was out of college, and I have worked in the county as a public health, home health, every other kind of nurse you can think about. I've worked in the hospitals in Durham. I've worked in hospitals, and I actually worked in Orange County, Hillsborough, is public health and all that. So my whole career has been public health. So as soon as I got to the General Assembly, I was put as chair of health and health appropriations. Why in the world they would give a nurse the policy and the money? They've regretted that, I can tell you. But anyway, that's kind of my background. So I am the first woman to ever be elected from Johnston County to go to the North Carolina House. So that was 6.5 years ago, so I've not been there forever. Before that, I was on the school board for 12 years, and at that time, I came into a situation like they have on the school board now, served 4 years under a tyrant superintendent, and I never voted on the budget because I never saw the budget. He would give me one piece of paper and say, vote. I said, no, I'm not going to vote. He said, you got to vote. He cursed me out on the school board and said, at the school board meetings, you've got to vote. I said, I'm not going to vote for something I've never seen. And I never voted for the budget for the whole 4 years that he was the superintendent. So we got rid of him. Well, first of all, I went out and got me some people to run for the school board. So we took over the school board, got us a new superintendent. And for the next 8 years, we became had the highest graduation rate in the state, the lowest dropout rate. We were the only school system in the state that got in the nation, taken to Indiana and honored for being the only school system ever to meet the highest ratings for recertification of any school district in the whole nation. We came through from the depression. We came through the recession, and we actually had at the end of the recession, we had lost $60 million from federal, state, and local funding, which is 3 resources for schools. We had lost all that money. We never riffed a single person, reduction in force. We had to give them notices because you have to give them notices 30 days in advance. So we did give some notices, but we never riffed anyone. And at the end of that period of time, in 2016, we had $8 million in our reserve account, which is what we were supposed to have for the amount of money that we got from the local, county commissioners. That was in 2016 when I left to go to the House. I served my last day on November, my last day on the school board, November 2016, was sworn into the House in 2017. 1.5 years later, this new superintendent went to the county commissioners 3 times, 3 different months, April, June, and August, and was given millions of dollars, about $12 million, because he couldn't make payroll. And then we wonder why we've got the mess we've got now. So I'm just saying it can be turned around, but you got to have people that are going to not just fight and fuss, but you got to have people to make plans. I was the finance chair, and I'm really proud of that. And Representative Larry Strickland, who's also the representative from Johnston County, was the chair, and we worked hard and we made a good team. So and then before that, I served 15 years, and some of this is not consecutive, so I'm not 100 years old. It was, but I did serve, like I said, some of this was, doing more than one job at the time. But I served 15 years on the planning board in Clayton, 15 years on the Board of Adjustment. I was 13 years as the advisory chair for the high school when my child had already graduated, but they wouldn't let me leave. And then they asked me to run for the school board, and that's how I got on the school board. And I just give you that little bit of history to say, one day you're going to be a representative or a senator from Johnston County. One day you're going to be on the school board, or you're going to be a county commissioner, or you're going to be the head of our GOP. Or you might be a congressman. So I'm just saying that you are the future, and I realize that. I'm not planning to stay there forever, but I'm still having a good time, and I'm still making good laws, and I'm going to stay there until I get voted out. And if I don't get some more Republicans in my district, it may be in 24. But I just want you all to know that if you're thinking about ever wanting to run for office, don't just jump out there and do it because you want to and because you think you can do it. Because when you get to Raleigh, you have entered a really different place than you will ever. And I see people that works in Raleigh shaking their head. I'm telling you, it is not an easy job. It is a tough job. If I told you what has happened to me since first thing this morning till I got here tonight, you would not believe it. You would not believe it. Well, I'll just tell you one thing. Does anybody know Senator Rabin from Brunswick County?
Very well, actually.
Well, guess what Senator Rabin is decorating his office with right now? Senator Rabin is decorating his office with yellow sticky notes. And guess whose name's on that yellow sticky note? Yes, Donna White. No money for Johnston County. And if we give you any, it will be very full strings attached. Heavy strings attached. Mm-hmm. What did you say, Jay?
I can't imagine which legislation he's holding.
Well, just keep your mouth shut, okay? We'll tell secrets later. Okay. I have the pleasure of working with Jeff. He is a research assistant for Representative Kristen Baker. And so I'm the nurse, she's the doctor, so we have a good team to go in. So Jeff does know the inside lines. But anyway, so that is what is decorating the Rules Chair of the Senate's wall. Because I'm not voting for one of his bills that he wants passed. And so he has taken every one of my bills that has gone through the House and passed 100%. D's and R's have voted for my bills. They're in his trash can right now. They were in his trash can the last session, 2 years, 21, 22. My bills were in his trash can because he wants me to vote for something that I cannot philosophically and as a nurse vote for. So it's a professional thing and it's a philosophical thing, and I'm just not going to vote for it. And I've got the facts to prove it, that hospitals, doctors, nurses across the state don't want this, but he thinks it's the right thing to do. And if you don't, and he knows, now it's actually been taken off the calendar for the House, and it took 60 votes from Republicans to take it off. So I'm not the only one, but he thinks that I'm the leader of the pack. So that's why my name's on the yellow sticky pad. And I was the leader of the pack. And I'm not embarrassed to say it. So anyway, so those are the kinds of things, and I could tell you a bunch of other things that's going on today too, but it is just a typical day in the North Carolina General Assembly. But I'm saying all that to say that when you go up there, you better be prepared. You better have some experience under your belt. You better know how to run a meeting. You better know how to get people together and do the right thing for the right cause that you have at that moment. Don't just step out of your whatever, I'm going to run for office. Because let me tell you something, they will eat you alive. And if you get elected, you'll wish you hadn't, if you're not prepared. And you're going to sit there going, oh, Lord, what the heck have I done? How did I make it up here? But anyway, it has been an honor. And because of my nursing background and because I had see, what being on those different boards, what it brought is that I knew about planning, I knew about zoning, so I could work with the contractors and the developers. I knew about having a fair voice. Board of Adjustment is the quasi-judicial board. I chaired that. So it was so funny when the first meeting that I went to with Jonathan Jordan, he was the speaker from, not speaker, but he was the committee chair for Judiciary 1, and I happened to be put on that committee my freshman year. And so we were voting on something that had something to do about a Board of Adjustment. So I raised my hand, I said, I'm scared to death. All freshmen are scared to death. I don't care how big you are, I don't care how you're still scared to death as a freshman. And I said, Representative Jordan, I said, I don't think I'm supposed to vote on this bill. He said, why not? Do you have a personal interest, or you said unethical? I said, oh no, I don't know anything about the bill as far as, who owns the property or anything like that. I just don't think I'm supposed to. He said, why not? I said, because I serve on the Board of Adjustment in my town. And he said, that don't make any difference. Go ahead and vote. So I voted. Well, then I saw the attorney. Every committee has an attorney present, and sometimes more than one. I saw the attorney get up and walk around to stand beside of me, and I thought, oh, shoot, I'm in trouble now. I said, hey, and she's the ethical attorney in the General Assembly. And she said, Representative White, what do you do for the Board of Adjustment? I said, I'm only the chair. Representative White, you need to get off that board right now. So obviously I did. Anyway, so before I forget this, Howard Penny, I was talking to Representative Howard Penny that took my 3 Cleveland precincts and 3 of Representative Strickland's Pleasant Grove precincts. So he has 6 precincts in northern Harnett County, has to come across the line into Johnston County and do 6 precincts here. He is a fine man. He is a constituent server just like I am. I went up there for one reason, to serve the people of Johnston County. And if I stop doing that, they'll bring me home. And they may bring me home because the Democrats moving in don't know I went up there to serve them. But I serve them too. But anyway, in fact, I had a Democrat call me this week and he said, Representative White, you answered my email. I said, yes, sir. Did I answer it satisfactorily? Oh, by all means. But why did you answer my email? I'm a Democrat. I said, sir, I took an oath to serve everybody in my district. And it doesn't matter if you're a D or an R. I'm going to serve you if you need my service. Now, I may not always vote on everything that you want me to vote on, the way you want me to vote. But if you need me, I'm there to serve you. And that's what I practice every single day. During COVID, I had 10,000 emails come into my phone in a week. And it took me 2.5 weeks to answer them all, but I answered them. And then I got 3,000 more thank you notes. And I said, don't thank me. I don't want to be thanked. But what happened, I probably had about 7,000 of the 10,000 from Johnston County because they couldn't get their unemployment check. And I got every single one of them their unemployment check. And then they spread the news to all their friends in the mountains and the coast, and everybody said, I'm getting all these emails from people that are not in my district saying, Representative White, we understand that you're the only representative that's actually working during COVID. I said, yeah, that's pretty much true. And I got their money for them. So it's just been, and sometimes I get checks for my campaign that I don't even know who the person is, but I think about that and I think somebody remembers that they wouldn't have had a paycheck if I hadn't worked that hard. So you need to work, you need to be able to work for your constituents. And Representative Penny, before I leave him, he wants to come and speak to you all whenever you need a speaker, and he wants to be a part of your team whenever you would allow him to. He's a good man, and he works hard, and he's got a long history in Johnston County as well. But he lives in Harnett County now. Your COS shirt. Convention of States, I have been one of the few members in the General Assembly that has supported Convention of States from the day I got there. Dennis Rydell got it started. That we've done, signed the resolutions, we've done that. I think it's just a way, another way for us to have a tool to look at what we're doing with our Constitution. The other thing is that their llama gives me kisses like you would not believe. Woo! It is one hot llama. I've got pictures on my phone. I've got videos on my phone. He smells me coming and he gets up. Now this is, about a month ago, it was so hot in July that he just couldn't stand up. And he was down on the ground, you know, and I said, hey, baby, how you doing? And he turned around and he got up and with his feeble little head, he just started kissing me. But they had just watered him down, so it was really wet kisses. So anyway, he is a good llama, though. He's a good mascot. Okay, budget. Is anybody interested in knowing anything about the budget? The budget has not passed yet. That's about all I can tell you. I think it will be September. I hope it will be September. At least, I mean, I would like for it to be sooner. Because I'm a budget chair, I do health and human services. So we have worked really hard. They told us that we were going to be out in the end of June, and they told us to have all of our budget information in by the middle of May, which we did. And then it went to the full chairs, and they did some crazy things. And then now it's in the corner offices. Do you understand what that means? Berger and Mohr. They are fighting like cats and dogs about everything. And so we don't know when the budget is going to be passed. But the good thing is that the Republicans in 2010 or 11 decided that when we got the majority, used to I was a state employee before I came to the House. In fact, I was still employed when I came as a nurse. But before the Republicans did this, we have what we now call a continuation budget. So you just keep functioning because the money's still coming in to cover the expenses that's in the current budget. You just keep functioning at that level. You can't give raises, you can't do some, new things, but you can continue to do what you're doing now. So the state is not shut down. When I worked for the Division of Aging as their home care, home health, and elder fraud consultant, actually I worked with Roy Cooper on the elder fraud issues for about 10, 12 years before I came to the House. But not for him, but with him in doing this initiative. But when you back when Perdue was the last Democrat governor before Cooper, um, when so I had been working for the state or local government for pretty much my whole career in different venues and so forth. But when it came June 30th, and she didn't have money to meet payroll, she made every state employee write out a check for a day's work and give it to her so she could meet payroll. And then she decided that I was a federal employee with the code numbers. She switched me to federal because you could get more money pull more money down from the feds if I happened to be a federal employee. I'd never been a federal employee. So that's what happened to one person, and you could just hear those stories over and over again. My office has always been filled with elephants because since I was 2 years old, living in Bolivia, there was a tent and there was straw on the ground floor and wood shavings or something, and there was an elephant parade. It was like a little local circus. They came in, and that was just the most beautiful animal I had ever seen in my life. So I was 2. So I grabbed hold of the elephant's leg, and the elephant took me down to the stage, and my mama was passed out, but I was happy as a lark. So that's when I fell in love with elephants. So my offices, everything has been filled with elephants. So I have never worked at a place until I came to the General Assembly where there was another Republican. Never in my whole history of working in the state and at local government, I was the only Republican. So I know what it is to be a true minority. So the day that Perdue told us that we had to write her out that check, and then she flipped some of us to a federal, it wasn't just flipping us in code. I got furloughed without pay for a month. Yeah. And then she was riding in the parades trying to run for re-election. Well, a bunch of my Democrat friends came to my office, and they wouldn't step inside because of all the elephants. But they said, you don't have to worry anymore. I said, I've not been worrying. What are y'all worried about? And they said, we are taking her out. Trust me, everybody in my office was a Democrat, and they voted against Perdue. And that's why she didn't get her second term. But it's because she didn't respect the state employees. But anyway, they started coming in my office and actually rubbing my elephants, knocked some of them off and broke their ears and stuff like that. But anyway, so yeah. So the good thing about the Republicans is that we fixed that. As soon as we took the majority, we fixed it so that nobody would have to write a check out to the governor. Nobody would have to be furloughed and lied about whether they were a state employee or federal employee. So now it's not we're not really happy about not having a budget, but the people that, now the school system is complaining because they wanted to give everybody raises and all those things, but they can still keep functioning and they can still hire people and all that at the same rates that they were before. The bills. Anybody have a particular bill you want me to talk about? Let me just say that a lot of my bills are related to health care, but a lot of my bills are related to other things as well. So some bills that are in what we call the hot tub right now is what to do about the land that's local, what to do about the land on Cornwallis Road beside the new fire station where we just I call it turning the dirt. It's called groundbreaking. But I'm a Johnston County girl. We turn the dirt. Anyway, so right beside of that is a piece of land that is that Clayton wants to satellite annex, and that they want to do it under certain conditions, and the man that has bought the property wants to do it under his conditions, and another incident that happened today. So this man is a rich dude, and he's not from Johnston County, but he wants to buy all that land, and we've got a new fire station going in there. They're going to build about 900 homes in that little spot. So it's going to be a nightmare with the traffic that you've already gotten. So I'm trying to do all that I can to prevent that. And that was another reason that my name was up on the little yellow sticky note. She's bad. But anyway, right now I've got the bill hid, and I've got the help of a committee chair to hide it. But if it does get passed, it's not going to take effect until the damage will, hopefully not be done. So anyway, that's just one example. Right now, everybody wants to know about DOT and 42 and when is it going to get widened from Clayton to Cleveland. In 28, and you might go, well, you just got to do something, Representative White. Every time, if I go and say to DOT, which they wouldn't have to obey that anyway, but if I said, we are going to get this road and you just need to give it to me right now because we're the fastest growing district in the state. Well, then people from Asheville and Wilmington and Greensboro and Winston that's got their DOT road that they've got to have fixed, they just have to take their money away and give it to me. And I don't think that's the way we want to live in Johnston County. So I work with DOT. They're in my office constantly. If there would be a window and somebody would decide in another part of the state not to take their money for this particular project, they would give it to me. We might could get it up, a few months or something. But we're not going to go in there and grab somebody else's money and not pay respect to their county and their district. And Representative Strickland was a DOT employee for longer than he's been a legislator. And he says, he trained me right. So he said, don't you go against what I've trained you. So I'll be glad to answer any question about any other bills you have. I do want to talk for just a moment about what you all can do to help the candidates. First of all, we've got statewide candidates, we've got national candidates, and we have to help them. But what has happened in the past in Johnston County is that we have put so much attention on the national candidates and maybe the statewide candidates that the rest of us that are dealing with I've talked about roads, I've talked about, lots of things tonight that affect every one of you on a daily basis. So the laws that affect you every day, now some of those come from Washington as well, and some of those, and obviously we want to support all of our state candidates. I am not saying not support them, but I am saying that I would hope that you all would not support all of them and forget that you've got local candidates like county commissioner, representatives, senators. During this last 2 years ago, we absolutely got forgotten. And I was at the polls every day from the time it opened until the time it closed, 2.5 weeks, for the early voting and all day on election day. And I had spots on election day that was not covered, and I had never had that because a man walked in here to run for Congress that had never been to Johnston County, didn't know where Johnston County was until he decided to run for Congress. And then he ran, and people in our party gave him all the list of names that it had taken me 6.5 years to garner, and plus 12 years running for the school board because you only had to run every 4 years on the school board. So when we have that kind of action, it really hurts the local candidates when you're just out there by yourself and you can't, and all the energy is being put in. Now, if you want to work for my campaign, I can pay you a little bit. I can't pay you as much as Bo Hines did, but I can pay you a little bit. But we wasted a lot of money on helping him, and we could have probably done a lot better if we had not done that. So I'm just saying, and this comes from Representative Strickland, Representative Penny, Senator Sorry, we all just cannot be left behind because there's not that many volunteers. And when we just get forgotten, then we're out there doing it ourselves. And it's a big county, and it's a big job. So appreciate your support and help for anything that you can do. Now, I am running for re-election in 2024. And so this is the first night that I've made that announcement. So y'all are the first. I saved it for you. And I want your vote. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. I felt like maybe I went on a little bit long, but I just wanted to let you understand, kind of what we do. Every day we have to balance what we do with what the other side's doing. A lot of times people come to you. I probably get 100 to 200 emails every day on a regular day, just a regular day, not a day when there's some big hot issue out there, but just a regular day. I can't even tell you how many texts and phone calls. And I have 3, did I say I had 3 email accounts? Yeah. And they all get that many. It's not just one of them. So, and I answer every one of those emails. Now, it kind of ended me up in the hospital 2 years ago from exhaustion because I was getting 2 hours of sleep, 4:30 to 6:30 for a whole year. But I realized I can't keep doing that. Nobody can do that. So, but anyway, I always try to call you back. I always try to answer your emails and your texts and let you know that I'm out there. And it's just amazing, even with all the Democrats moving in, almost every day I get 1 or 2 or 3 thank yous from a Democrat and saying, but I'm a Democrat. Why are you doing this for me? I said, because you're my constituent. And that's the way it is. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Be glad to. My number is 919-889-1239. It rhymes every time, and that's my campaign number.
Representative White, I do, first off, thank you for being here and taking the time to be with us. 2 questions, one legislative, another one, I guess, logistical. From a legislative standpoint, in layman's terms, I attempted to read it 3 times. All 3 times I fell asleep in my own drool. So
I've had that experience.
The reform, if that's a correct word to use, for the certificate of need law that does still exist on the books, but there was some adjustment to it recently. Could you specifically explain the impact of those changes for these little mom and pop doctor's offices and what they can and can't do now? What changed for them? Are they going to be able to start practicing with new equipment, or can they actually finally buy an MRI machine? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Right this minute, that is in the corner offices.
Okay.
Yeah. We've passed the bill that allows more. Actually, we passed about 2 or 3 bills that this thing is wobbling like crazy. I'm just gonna stand right here. But the certificate of need is, when it started, it was a very needed process.
Sure.
But as North Carolina has grown so rapidly and so many different options and people being allowed to practice all kinds of different medical providers being able to practice and do a lot of different things, and because of the growth, what certificate of need has done for some facilities is hurt them from being able to actually provide the services that they need to provide. Now, obviously, your bigger hospital organizations do not want to do away with certificate of need because they get to control who is able to do an MRI or exactly. So we actually got it through the House, and as far as I know right this minute, what we did is put it into an omnibus bill, and I'm not sure if that omnibus bill is going to be tucked into the budget. It's still kind of out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and that's all depending on what the corner offices decide they want to do.
But the reform would sort of loosen the stranglehold.
What this reform would do, and Jeff, if you remember that bill, I was trying to think of what the bill did that we actually got passed out of the House, and I don't think it's passed out of the Senate. I'm almost 100% sure it hasn't. But what the reform did, it allowed certain types of businesses, not carte blanche, not doing away with hospitals and that kind of thing. But it did allow some services, like having some be able to purchase equipment when you need it in your office and not have to be labeled and waiting for a certain amount of patients to build up before you can do that.
Right.
So there's been some technical changes, and I'm just not really sure exactly where it's at right this minute.
Gotcha. I
think it's going through. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever the original intent of a certificate of need, I understand that seems to have
It was
changed,
just the original intent was to bring safety to patients,
right,
and to make sure that people that were getting into the healthcare industry, which was typically your nurses and your doctors, there's just not a lot of variety back in the day when the CON was put in. Right. But now that we have nurse practitioners, advanced practice nurses, we have doctors that are at different levels. We have people coming back from the military that were medics becoming PAs. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more variety now, yes. And so because of that, we need it to serve. And if Medicaid expansion does get through the budget, it's been passed by votes, but if it gets through the budget, that's going to be adding another 700 to 900 patients, or clients that would be eligible for care. And right now there's such a nursing shortage, there's a practitioner shortage, there's a physician shortage, it's across the board. And in home care and home health, home care aides and private duty nursing and all that. So those are some requests that we have in the budget to try to, increase their rate. And it is, healthcare is a very complicated.
Yes, it is.
Very complicated.
But at the end of the day, folks like myself, and particularly my wife, and I beat down Senator Barnes' door about this 2 years ago when the bill was in the Senate, and now I'm still advocating for it.
If you'll give me your text or your text number or whatever
sure.
before I leave, I'll check on that and send you the latest.
Please
update.
do.
Yeah,
I
would be glad to do that.
if we can bring the prices down by introducing competition, because certificate of need stops competition.
Right.
Gives power to big.
Right.
corporate
And there was some, they wanted to do in-home, some in-home treatments that I was kind of opposed to. I thought it was a little bit beyond what we needed to do, but actually I think it got into that. So dialysis in the home.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, as a nurse, that was really hard.
Yeah.
As a nurse that has been a home care nurse and gone into the home and seen the condition of some homes, I wouldn't want to be doing dialysis.
Yeah. How free is zero rest?
Exactly.
And to my second question, a bit logistical and a bit personal to your circumstance, and you can speak at your time at the school board or now in the House. How did you manage working a full-time job and being an elected official at the same time?
I'm Superwoman. Did you not see the movie? I was, well,
the time management skills are on point,
yes,
obviously, but
definitely. And not only that, from the time when I got elected to the school board in November 2004. And it was so funny. I got to share this with you. My mother had been in the hospital for 3 months. She had fallen and went into complete dementia. Never knew who I was again. But I kept her at my home from 2004 until 2010 when she passed, and provided home care for her. So and it was full home care, home health care. So, but when I got, when I was asked to run, it was a late filing period, so we filed in April. And then I don't know what happened that year. It was 2004. But anyway, I filed in April and had talked to my mother and father, who was kind of my political advisors, and they said, yeah, that would be great. We'd love to be able to go with you to all these things and stuff. So we did that. And so then my mother fell in September, and from that moment on, she was basically a baby for the rest of her life and lived 6 more years. So, but anyway, filing then. I was trying to run a campaign, and I thought, I can't run a campaign. My mom was at Wake Med, and then she was there for 6 weeks, and then she was down at Johnston Health. And so I thought, Johnston Health, oh, I could do some campaigning. So I took a sign that I had made and put up in the window of the hospital, and people would come by and they'd say, who is Donna White? I said, it's me. I'm running for school board. Vote for me. Well, a lot of, and I'm not going to mention their name because y'all would all know who I'm talking about. But anyway, another man that was running against me, I think there were six people that ran, and I won. But this other man that was come from a very wealthy family, the day of the election, I was getting gas at the gas station, and he was standing there, and he said, Miss White, he said, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you on this campaign trail. I knew of you, but I didn't really know you. And so tonight when I win, and I'm flying my parents in from a northern state, he said, I just want you to know anything you need on the school board, I'm going to help you with. And I said, so have you already seen the votes or something? I mean, it's like early morning. He said, oh no, but my father-in-law gave me X amount of money. In fact, he gave me off a whole year to run and gave me more money than you can. I'm not even going to say the amount of money because you wouldn't believe me. And he said, so it just makes sense that I'm going to win. And so I just want you to know that if you work hard, I really enjoy it. And I know you were taking care of your mom, so you didn't have a lot of time. I said, well, that's pretty much true. So that night, I'm in my mother's house. A hospital bed is in the living room, and we've got her in the hospital bed. And I was doing her PM care. That's AM, PM, PM care. Okay. My mother and daddy, I mean, it was like 2004, so I know y'all will understand this, but there was a television with 2 channels, Channel 11, Channel 5, WTVD, WRAL. That's all we got. There, and then there was a computer, and my daddy played solitaire. And and there was 1 black phone in the house. And I don't think I got my cell phone until 2005, so maybe that was, anyway. So the phone rang, and my family had given me a little party that night, and my sister had a cake made. It said, "We wished you could have won, but since you didn't, we want you to know we loved you. We love you." Okay, so the phone rings. I'm in there changing mother's diaper, and my sister came in. She said, "There's somebody on the phone for you." And I said, "Well, who would know that I was here?" Except that everybody knew I was there. I said, "Is it somebody we know?" She said, "No, I don't know who it is." She says her name is, Marty McGuire. And I said, "I don't know a Marty McGuire." So I went to the phone. I said, "Hello." And she said, "Well, what do you think?" She said, "Miss White, this is Marty McGuire from the N&O. What do you think?" I said, "About what?" I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, "What do you think?" I said, she said, "You don't know what I'm talking about?" I said, "No, ma'am, I don't." I said, "Why are you calling me, and why do you want to know what I'm thinking about something? You're not telling me what it is I'm supposed to be thinking about." She said, "I think I may have gotten the wrong Donna White." She said, "Are you the Donna White that's running for the school board, Johnston County School Board?" I said, "Well, yeah, but, I'm not going to win." And I started to tell her, that man told me this morning I was not going to win. I said, "My mother's been real sick, and I've had to be in the hospital with her for 3 months, so I haven't had a chance to campaign or anything." She said, "Miss White, I have never had the privilege of telling a candidate that they've won, but you've won." I had to sit down. I said, "What? Are you kidding me? I don't know how to be on the school board. I can't be on the school board." And she said, "Are you serious that you didn't know you won?" I said, "No, my mama's got 2 stations, and they don't run the local stuff. Now they do, but they didn't back then. And so you had to wait till like 12 o'clock, and this was probably 10:30, something like that." And she said, "I cannot believe I have never been able to tell a candidate they won." I said, "And I really did win." She said, "Oh, you didn't just win. There were 4 seats up." She said, "You won big." She said, "You came in number 2, but you almost knocked number 1 out. You knocked number 3 down to number 4, and number 3 went home." I said, I knocked somebody off? They had, "Oh, no, who was it?" It was Joan Price, Richard Price's wife, an attorney in Smithfield, and they lived in Clayton, and she was the one from Clayton. But the other candidates, there were 4 other candidates other than those 4. So 4 incumbents ran. I was running, and there were 3 or 4 more people that ran. So I said, "Oh my gracious, I can't believe this." She said, "I can't believe that you didn't know you won." I said, "I didn't know I won." I said, "I got to hang up this phone." I ran back in my mother's living room, and I jumped up on the couch, and I was jumping up and down, saying, "I won, y'all, I won." And my sister said, "You did not." I said, "Yes, I did." So we all jumped in the car. My brother-in-law stayed with my mother, and we got in the car. We went down to they had a big screen. They had just put it up in the courthouse, in the atrium of the courthouse, and in Smithfield. But first, before we went there, we went to the Triple S High School, because I was just sure. I remembered they were going to have a party. I'd heard that through the GOP. We got there, and all the doors were locked. It was dark. Everybody gone home, because by this time it's probably almost 12 o'clock. We go back. I said, "I believe I heard something about they were going to have that you could go to the courthouse and find out." So I didn't know about the big screen. Got to the courthouse, went up the steps, and 2 of the school board members, one of them is back on the school board now, but there were 2 school board members standing there. And I said, "Y'all, I won. I'm going to be a member with y'all." One of them turned around and said, "No, you are not. Clayton pulled some kind of mess. There's no way you could have gotten elected, and you're not going to be on this school board." And he was using really flavorful language, And he said, "She was my best friend, and you are not kicking her off, especially illegally. How you Republicans did this, I don't know." They were both Democrats, by the way. And the one that's back on the school board now said, "Now, you need to calm down. We'll get to the bottom of this, but she is excited now. She is just, she thinks she's won, so let her have that for a few moments. Well, then I'm sitting there going, and I tried to shake their hand, and they wouldn't shake my hand. So I finally walked out, and my family was back there, and they were like, and I said, it'll be okay. They're just upset because John lost. I said, but they'll be fine. So I walked down the steps, and I looked out, and here is the man sitting in his car that I had seen that morning at the gas station. His parents were sitting in the car with him, and he is crying. He said, Miss White, I can't believe you won this race. I said, I can't either. It's a real big surprise to me. So anyway, just remember that even if you win, it may not start out as happy as you think it's going to start. So, but anyway, that's the way I started out on the school board. And then I got to the first school board member meeting, and the superintendent at that time looked at me and said, I don't know how you did this, but we're going to get you off. Don't you worry about it. We're going to get you off. So I threw up every time before I went to the school board for 4 years. But after that, I was doing pretty good. got me some Republicans up there. Yeah. So I know my time is probably up. Any more questions or anything? Again, if you want to contact me at any time, if you call me, say I am with the Young Republicans, my name is, because I get a lot of, especially since we passed a lot of conservative bills this year that Jeff and Marshall know about. I'm sure y'all know about them too, but my life has been threatened on a regular basis. The last weekend in May, I'm sorry, third or fourth weekend in May, my son had to fly in and take me out of town for a few days too. And then my son-in-law came and picked me up to just get me out of the threats. And so it's not just me. In fact, I got to the General Assembly one day, and there's only 8 of the Republican women in the House side of the legislature, the Republican side. So I pulled up one day, and I saw a whole line of representative men standing in the middle of Lane Street, which is where I park, and they were doing like this to the traffic. And I got out and I said, "What are y'all doing?" They said, "We're protecting you. Get out of your car and walk on up here." So that was their way of showing support. So that was really important. But it is with the sports and the women's sports issue, the pro-life issue, and parents' rights and all that stuff. The women have been. In fact, I have been told on this phone many times, "How dare you be a nurse and a woman and vote for these things? We will take you out." So I am planning on a really tough race. So that's why I need folks like you that are really interested in working hard. So we'll need to work hard together. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. White.